frustrated nightclub bouncer arrived in Dr. Paul Federoff's office one day, telling the psychiatrist his wife complained he was constantly trying to have sex with her while she was asleep. Only the nightclub bouncer protested he didn't remember it. Dr. Federoff told his wife the next time it happens to turn on the lights and tell him what she saw. A week later, the confused bouncer was back and told the doctor, "She said I was asleep." Now, falling asleep after sex is common, but sleeping during sex? Apparently, it's not that unusual at all. It's called sexsomnia, a condition in which people engage in sexual behavior during sleep. In an interview on Kaiser Permanente Medical Center Sleep Clinic's website, Dr. David Saul Rosenberg argues, "I've had a number of patients who realized that a lot of their lovemaking was occurring while they were unconscious. One patient's girlfriend noticed while they were making love that he was snoring." In his groundbreaking treatise, Sleep Sex Uncovered, psychologist Michael Mangan explains that an estimated 2.5 million Americans have had experience with sexsomnia, either by having it or sleeping with someone who does. And many instances of sleep sex go unreported because people are afraid, embarrassed, or ashamed to discuss the problem. Dr. Mark Mowell, director of the Minnesota Regional Sleep Disorder Center, explained to Fox News on October 30th, 2003, "You can be assured that it's much more common than people think. Nobody talks about it. It's not the kind of thing you bring up at the neighborhood cocktail party." Fortunately, an academic setting such as this isn't a cocktail party, and we need to know more about this little-known condition. So let's first open our eyes to the physiological factors of sleep sex. Second, pull the covers off of the different types of sleep sex. And finally, expose its legal implications. According to a May 2003 press release from the Stanford University Medical Center, Dr. Christian Gumenalt and his team of researchers believe that sexsomnia is caused by glitches in the brainwaves during sleep. According to their study, published in the March-April 2003 issue of the journal Psychosomatic Medicine, rather than quietly passing through the 5 stages of sleep, each of which has a classic brainwave pattern, patients who exhibit signs of sexsomnia had unusual patterns during one of the sleep stages, or short interruptions in their sleep. Video and sound recordings of the patients revealed that the sleep sex behavior took place during these hiccups in the sleep cycle. But Dr. Colin Shapiro told the January 2004 Red Book that these neurological hiccups during the sleep cycle are much more likely to occur when there is sleep deprivation, high levels of stress, and alcohol abuse. And like sleepwalkers, sleep sexers have no memory of their nocturnal behavior when they wake up. Dr. Alan Hobson, director of Harvard University's Neurophysiology Lab, explained in his 2000 book, Sleep, "We know that sexual arousal can be automatic in sleep. Low-level brain mechanisms, like those critical to sexual intercourse, are activated. Higher functions, like judgment and memory, are disabled." So, now that we know what goes on in the brains of those with sexsomnia, let's turn our attention to what goes on in their beds. There are 3 main types of sexual behavior that sexsomniacs engage in: vocalizations, masturbation, and intercourse. 2 of the women in Gumenalt's study made loud and continuous sexual moaning sounds during the night. Although this type of sleep sex behavior is relatively harmless, one of the women felt guilty and embarrassed that her moaning disturbed her spouse and children. Another type of sexual behavior people engage in during sleep is masturbation, sometimes violently to the point of bruising and soreness. One young man lamented that to his horror and disgust, he awoke one morning and found that he had masturbated upon a friend. While another woman reported on the website sleepsex.org that she didn't believe her boyfriend's story that she masturbated in her sleep until he videotaped her doing so. The last and most frequent type of sexsomnia is when people will initiate and engage in sexual intercourse with others while totally asleep. One woman reported to WebMD on October 30th, 2003, "Within the first hour after my husband falls asleep, he will initiate sex with me. He's a very different person while doing this, much more aggressive, groping, and playfully biting me. I used to think he was awake, until I would confront him the following day and he wouldn't have any recollection of what he did. Ultimately, she admitted she came to like this aspect of their relationship. In Sleep Sex Uncovered, Dr. Mangan argues that contrary to initial expectations, there are both positive and negative aspects to sexsomnia. On the bright side, explains Mangan, some men and women indicate that they very much enjoy waking up to being touched, and more generally to a sexually aroused partner. In some cases, it appeared as though both partners were enjoying their waking sex lives, and that sleep sex had simply been integrated into their sex life as a whole. One woman featured in Mangan's book reports, "Sleep sex is great. My husband initiates while we're asleep. It's better when he's asleep. Something about lasting longer, perhaps giving a whole new meaning to the expression, getting in 40 winks." However, there's also a darker side to sexsomnia as well. The majority of the negative sleep sex experiences have to do with fear and anxiety over one's own or partner's sleep sex. One woman said of her boyfriend's sleep sex behaviors, "This has affected us so much that I may need to leave him. I don't think I can stand to have someone do this repeatedly for the rest of my life." And many women expressed that they felt like they were being sexually assaulted by their partners during sleep sex occurrences. And it's this last part that leads to the legal implications of sleep sex. As you might expect, cases of sexsomnia have found their way into the courtroom. Stanford University's Gulmanalt explains that, frighteningly, some cases of sexsomnia resemble rape or rape-like behavior. A 27-year-old former adult youth leader who sought Dr. Mangan for professional consultation in his impending legal case explained. He had moved in with a family and shared a room with their 14-year-old son, whom he had had a great relationship with. One night, he suddenly woke up and was told by the boy that he had been giving him oral sex. He exclaimed, "I was horrified. I have absolutely no recollection of it happening. I do remember waking up and seeing where I was, and it shocked the hell out of me. What do I do? I'm going to be charged with rape of a child in the 3rd degree. I need a professional opinion because, frankly, I'm very scared, and some people don't believe me." The summer 1998 issue of the Journal Archives of Sexual Behavior reported the case of a 45-year-old man who awoke to the screams of a 14-year-old girl, a friend of his daughter's who was spending the night at his home. Evidently, while asleep, he had walked downstairs to where the two girls were sleeping and began fondling his daughter's young friend. She woke up and began screaming. He was arrested and charges of sexual battery were leveled against him. At the time, he was happily married and had no history of sexual misconduct. And while both he and his spouse believed he had been sleepwalking, his attorney advised him to forget about this business of sleepwalking because a jury would never believe it. However, that isn't necessarily true. The June 2003 issue of the Canadian Journal of Psychiatry described many cases of men who were charged with sexually assaulting their partners or even their own children. However, all were exonerated after doctors found evidence of sexsomnia. Dr. Paul Fedorov, co-director of a sexual behaviors clinic, explained to ABC News that signs of sexsomnia are pretty tough to fake, and that is why the courts have supported the legitimacy of the defense. On the other side of the issue is Deborah, not her real name, who admitted in Mangan's book that she once accused a man of date rape, but he insisted it was her who had initiated it. Obviously, she didn't believe him. However, over the next few years, it happened again, until she discovered 5 years into her marriage that she did indeed suffer from sleep sex. Now, she says, she lives with the guilt that there was almost a man in prison because of her problem. From the physiological factors to its various types to the legal implications, it's clear that sexsomnia is a very real phenomenon. A phenomenon that affects over 2.5 million Americans, and maybe someday, one of us. Unless, of course, you live alone and never spend the night at any of your friends' houses.